Today I want to talk about Sean Gleeson and how he sees the quarterback race shaping up at Oklahoma State with audio from Sean Gleeson. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. So it's OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today, I took a trip up to Stillwater following my show, the RJ Young Show, on the Sports Animal in Tulsa, 97.1 FM. If you are in the area, there's a link in the description below where you can listen on the internets, on the interwebs, if you are so inclined. But as part of the gig, one of the things I love to do is get into it, right? So go to Oklahoma, go to Oklahoma State, go to Thunder Stuff, go to as many events as possible because it's important to not only show your face and back up what you say and also give yourself an opportunity. Hey, look, I'm here now. Do you want to ask a question of me about what I've said on the radio or any of the other stuff, right? A lot of it is just hearing what you hear and seeing what you see. So I drove, what is it, 70 miles to Stillwater, which, I've been wanting to do for those of you that have been following the channel for a very long time, to Karsten Creek, where I'm so glad I did not participate in this tournament, which was put on by Oklahoma State and the media staff, because everybody, the worst score was even. I think it took a 59, which was, I think, the gross low score, right? So it took 59 to win that thing, and I'm going, yo, these are media types. Some of y'all really get down with the golf. But got to sit there. Spread was great. Really interesting crowd. Hey, look, I was pleasantly surprised by how just cool, kind everybody was, including Sean Gleeson and Jim Knowles. We'll get to Jim Knowles in another video, but today I wanted to focus on Sean Gleeson. And first, my man's tall. I know I'm short, but I think I know from tall. And that dude is severely tall, and he has a really great presence about him. He has a commanding presence about him, and he's already into, hey, look, I'm done talking about the move. I'm done talking about being in Stillwater. I want to talk football. And you'll get to that as I give you the best of this interview session that he performed, which is about 15 minutes, and that's going to take up the bulk of this video. But, man, I was impressed. I thought everybody else should be impressed. I couldn't wait to talk about this on the radio, and you probably already heard much of this already because that's where the sound premiered. So we're going to talk about this at length, but he believes that they are in a straight-up race between Dru Brown and Spencer Sanders. We've all said that Spencer Sanders is the guy, and apparently the only people who don't believe that are the offensive coordinator and the head coach, Mike Gundy, and of course, Sean Gleeson. Both of those guys have said, hey, I want a dogfight. We got 10 practices until we get to the scrimmage, and I want to know at the end of this that I got the best guy for the job. And he gave reasons as to why he thought both of those dudes would have opportunities to win the job that I want to let him unpack for you. All right, let's get to Sean Gleeson in the scrum talking about Dru Brown, Spencer Sanders, and what it's like for him to prepare for training camp at Oklahoma State. Take a listen.
Of course, the first question is, who's starting at quarterback?
We've gotten that a few times.
Yeah.
We've got a great situation. Both kids, when I was asked in the spring, listed a couple of their strengths. I think Dru's, he's been around. He knows offensive football, and Spencer's is an eager young kid with great athleticism and arm strength. And what's been fun as a coach, you watch them this summer, and they've really accentuated some areas that might not have been listed as strengths. So I'm real excited to get going here, and I think whoever ends up leading us this year, I think we'll be in great shape.
Do you have a timetable about when you want to start it in?
Coach Gundy is not playing the media or being evasive. When we know the starter, we're going to name it. So there's a scrimmage 10 practices in. I would guess that both kids would have ample opportunity after having a spring where we kind of rotated them, and I gave them equal opportunity. Those 10 practices, I'm hoping, is very competitive and very a little bit less gentlemanly than the spring for the first 10 practices, and then once we get there after, we'll either have an answer or we won't, but it's not because we're trying to play any games.
And you've had a history in the past of maybe playing two quarterbacks even on the same play. Is that something that's open?
Well, we played 3 too at the same time. So that history at Princeton was just because those kids deserve to play. It wasn't gimmicky. It wasn't something that we were trying to fool people. It was because we had quarterbacks who were talented and worked their tail off and deserve an opportunity to get on the field just as if we were playing two tight ends at the same time. So yeah, that's part of my brain in history of football is playing multiple quarterbacks, but it's always whatever's best for the team. Yep.
Dru and Spencer seem to have taken a liking to each other and learned from each other. What have you seen from them kind of going off each other?
Dru and Spencer, you said? I thought you said you and Spencer.
Oh, no.
So I hope they don't like me too much right now. So, no, yeah, the thing, the social media video that was put out recently was a great indication. That they captured those two kids perfectly. They work hard, they compete. Like I said, the spring was a chance for them to kind of get a foundation in the offense and be around the ones for a little while, which with Taylor last year. He's a first-year starter. You're going to give him the bulk of the reps with the ones. So in the spring, we got him kind of equal amount of time playing with the ones, and we're hoping that the training camp battle is something that makes our whole team better and gives us an edge, because those two guys are just scratching and clawing, and I believe that'll be the case. But what's great about them, and you saw in the video, is that when that competition stops at the end of practice, or they're in the meeting room, or they're over at my house for barbecue, they're just great kids. They rode home that night in the same pickup truck, so that gives you an indication how they feel about each other.
Now, you obviously have been here for a while now. Have you noticed the biggest difference between coaching at Princeton and coaching at an OSU?
Yeah, I'm kind of, to be honest, I'm getting a little tired of the transition questions. It's time to coach football. That's what I was hired here for. I'm excited to get going in training camp, and there's a dry cleaner and a grocery store and all the comforts of life all over America. Once I figure that stuff out, which I have already, I got a great wife who gets us on good footing. It's not about me and Princeton or Oklahoma State anymore. It's about you were hired to do a job, to coach kids hard and score points, and that's what we're going to do this fall. So I appreciate the question, but I'm trying to move on from the transition stuff.
If you can you summarize your offensive style?
Sure. Some of the style is going to be very similar. So I felt like there was inherent in me coming here a lot of overlap between Oklahoma State and Princeton, the way that I think that modern football is played. But the three things that our guys are going to be nauseous hearing from me every single day is we want to be fast, physical, and hungry. And I think that you'll see that come out as it relates to the no huddle, the way that we compete, and I still think football is about moving people against their will, so there should be a physicality, an East Coast physicality to what we're doing, and then the motivational stuff, having some hunger is really important to me in this game. So I'm hoping those three things come out: fast, physical, and hungry.
Chuba is going to be a big part of what you guys do on the offensive side. What have you seen from him in the spring and in the summer?
He's a very confident kid. I know that he had some dynamic plays last year, but he's still relatively green. I mean, he shared some time last year, but you would never see it on his face. He is a great competitor. I love the way he works, and he's very humble. He wants to get better and wants to be coached. So I think the sky's the limit for that kid, and hopefully a lot of the players in his group come along. I think having multiple running backs in your program is always an advantage. Kind of cycle some guys through and make sure that they're always fresh. But Chuba he's a great kid. I love coaching him. He's very, very humble and very hardworking.
How exciting is it to kind of be in control of an offense that has the weapons that you have in the skill positions?
Yeah, for sure. We just, the quarterback thing, which everyone's asking about, I want this place to be the place where the best quarterback in the country sits. And we won games at Princeton with that model. There's a guy in New England right now who's a pretty darn good quarterback who wins a lot of games because his play is better than everyone else's. So that's where we want to go. Right now, I think that our quarterback group needs to enhance and accentuate all the great playmakers that you guys are talking about. Chuba Hubbard's, the Tylan Wallace's, we've got some really, really good skill kids. We just got to make sure, and Coach Gundy said it a little while back, we got to make sure that we don't turn the ball over and we don't make stupid decisions, and get those guys in space and let them score some points. But we will do that, and then hopefully as we get better and better at quarterback and more experience, and I get more experience here, that in Stillwater is the quarterback like they got New England and like they have around the country, where they win a lot of games and that guy's leading the way.
The offensive line's been a bit of an issue the last couple of seasons. What do you think of that group from what you've seen so far?
Well, they're in Charlie Dickey's hands, so we're going to be in good shape. Some of the motivation that I have for this whole year are for guys in that group. Like Marcus Keys, for instance, is and Johnny Wilson. They've been here a long time, so people want to talk. You got a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan. I got like a 30-second plan, and the reason is I want to make sure that those guys get my best because they deserve it. And I think beyond us kind of rallying around that group, like Marcus and Johnny, and putting our best foot forward for those guys, I think that there's a tremendous amount of growth so far in that group, and I would expect under Charlie's tutelage, they're going to do a wonderful job.
Are there some questions that you have that maybe even can't get answered until the first game of the season, or just about this offense?
Yeah, that's sports. Sport. I think there's a few lights in my face right now, but whenever those lights go on, I think you kind of find out a little bit about your team, a little bit about certain kids, and every year, whether you have returning players who have played a ton, there's always an environment, a scenario where people are going to get challenged. You hope that your practice habits and the intensity with which you go about your business, those lights go on and your guys respond the right way. So there'll be some growing pains and some things, but I would imagine that we'll that's a big part of who I feel like I am as a coach, is making sure that our kids perform. So, yeah.
What are some of the things that you do specifically to make sure that you're correct for training camp, you personally?
It's just about being prepared, making sure that you have all your ducks in a row. It's not too different than a teacher. I was a teacher, one of my first jobs out of college, teacher getting ready to teach a class, making sure you got your syllabus and your materials ready to go. We have very strict rules by compliance, the amount of time that we get with the kids. So I think that making good use of the meeting time and having everything kind of laid out and a plan to implement the offense, and then giving kids feedback along the way on how they're performing is part of it all. So yeah, anticipating that a little bit and just making sure that everyone is kind of very clear on how the offense is going to get laid out in training camp, and some of the things that you'll want to get to that might be new, or you might be polished up a little different way. So just the whole summer is really that. It's like research and then organization, and now is the fun part. We get to teach the kids and watch them play.
Is there any player besides, the Hookards and the Wallaces that people are familiar with that maybe they're not quite as familiar with that's standing out for you?
Yeah, I think the two Cowboy backs have had a great spring, Jelani and Logan, Jelani Woods and Logan Carter. They have done a great job. I know Logan, as a recent scholarship kid for us, started as a walk-on. So you just see the intensity that they have in that group, and they're coming along. Jelani was a position change guy, but they did a great job in the spring, and I'm sure people are going to be happy to see the product that they put out as well.
Does it excite you to battle a lot of the Big 12 offenses that you're going to see, specifically with all the scoring that's gone on recently? Yeah. I enjoy that. When the possessions get skyrocketed up in the air and there's a lot of points being scored, that's where you want to be as an offensive coach, kind of intimate in among that company, and those games where it could come down to that Monday night game last year between the Chiefs and the Rams. That's kind of fun for an offensive coach. I'm not sure Coach Knowles wants to be in a game like that, but that's fun for an offensive coach, kind of battling back and forth and punches going back one after the other.
You feel like, as an offensive coach, being in the Big 12 in college, that's about as good as it gets, right?
Absolutely, and with Coach Gundy. That's I think again part of the reason that I was so excited to come here was the
the offensive history and then working underneath a guy that's been a head coach for as long as he has and kind of seen everything from A to Z. I'm eager to learn everything that I can from him and help bring scoring football and championship football to Stillwater.
What have you seen out of his Coach Gundy's energy? He took a lot of ownership of what happened last year. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, that's what a great leader does, right? They kind of stand in the way of everything that's good and bad about the thing that they're in charge of. So he is unbelievable executive of the whole program. There's a lot of people, support staff and things that make our group meetings, our staff meetings, a pretty bloated room, but he has a finger on the pulse of everyone's job, and it's just fun to watch him go to work, and he's got great perspective on recruiting. He's tremendous with the media. He does a lot of great things, and I think I said a little while ago, I thought I had some sort of privileged position having my office sit right next to his, but I think it's just because he can kind of come in and yell at me if I do something wrong. So it's a little less about my stature and more proximity, I think, that makes that a good situation.
What kind of influence has Coach Dickey had on you so far?
In the spring, I was asked that question. He's a great resource. Some of the coordinators that are returning in the league, great resources to kind of maybe the way that they attempt to attack. They try to attack him at K-State. There's a lot of overlap. I mean, the run game, when you're a coordinator and you want to chit-chat about the run game, you go directly to the O-line coach. There's a lot of similarities between the way that I kind of hope the run game should look and the way that he thinks about it as well. So, but yeah, it's just having somebody in your corner who loves coaching technique, loves dialoguing, and whatever we end up conversating about, the thing that's fun about him is we go out to the field and he's full steam ahead with whatever we decided. It's not, there's no contentious things that carry over with Coach Dickey. He's a great human being, first and foremost, and I'm really thankful that he's here.
Be it fans, media, whoever, most people assume Spencer Sanders is going to be the quarterback based on his accolades coming out of high school, and the fact that Dru Brown didn't play at all last year despite the offense struggling in some games. What is it about what Dru does that makes this a real race?
Yeah, I don't really get into the Spencer's this and Dru's that. We're searching for a quarterback, and they both, it happens all over the country. I know that each kid has their own story, but it's about the team. It's not necessarily like we're trying to play the thing a certain way. Dru and Spencer are in an equal race right now, and to answer your question about Dru's abilities, he's a football nut, and that doesn't mean that Spencer isn't. But Dru's just been around longer. I'm sure Spencer will, with more time, grow up and get coached longer. And Dru's been a part of 3 different staffs. So I think I said in the spring, he's got 3 different coaches all coaching the same plays. There's not too much different about football plays now. So he's got perspective on hearing it from 3 different voices. So that's fun to talk with him about that. And it's probably a little bit of an asset to him. Whereas Spencer's just had a coach for a year. He's now learning another language. Despite Coach Yursich and I and the similarities that we have, we probably talk a little bit differently. He's from Ohio, I'm from New Jersey. I don't have too much of an accent, but in football, we all speak a little bit differently. So Spencer's kind of was getting used to some of that in the spring. But this is an even race. We're looking for a quarterback who is going to be competitive, intelligent, and accurate. That's CIA. That's kind of like what I think about 3 most important things about quarterback play. I need a guy who's going to lead our players. I need a guy who's going to be intelligent enough to run this no huddle here. And there's all different shapes and sizes at quarterback, but the thing that we all understand is that accuracy matters. So whether you throw it hard or fast, or you're big or small, I think accuracy is a really, really important thing. So those would be the elements that I would hope both of the guys show in training camp, and then ultimately won in the midst of this competitive battle. And I want it to be a dogfight. I want training camp to feel like a dogfight, because I think it's going to harden our team and make us tougher and more disciplined. We're going to get somebody to come out of that thing, and I'm excited.